A lot of hotel chains have tried to be more transparent over the past couple of years by removing any hidden junk fees. But an article on thestreet.com says some of those exact same chains, they're now charging a parking fee to guests, regardless of whether or not you actually have a car on the property. And most customers aren't finding out until it's time for that final bill. So you could say that the fee structure changed. And I have to wonder, can the same thing happen to fees when it comes to investments? Can they change within the small print from year to year? How do you guys help investors understand where the fees may lie?
Well, I'd say that the first thing is in that example, they talk about a parking fee for guests, whether they have a car or not. The most important thing in the lesson there is look at your statement. I mean, I'm notorious. I'll leave a hotel and I'll just check out, but look at the statement and see what it is. The same can be true when it comes to understanding your investment fees and expenses. Is look at your statement and take a review to see what fees and expenses are coming out. A lot of the times, though, it is much more difficult in an investment portfolio because a lot of these fees and expenses are buried in, and the end user, the consumer, doesn't really understand what they are until they get together with somebody like us and we break it down. So if you want to know what your fees and expenses are, the first thing that you should do is reach out to our office, give us a call, and we'd be happy to do a portfolio analysis, and we can kind of show you what your fees and expenses are down to the penny so you know what your cost structure is. The second thing, as I would say, is the cheapest isn't always the best either. So there is something to be said about paying for something, but again, you've got to get more value in return than what the cost is that's associated with that expense. But understanding what your fees are is crucial. When you look at fees in the financial investment world, the first thing is you have expense ratios, and expense ratios are what we think about when we think about mutual funds, exchange traded funds. Those expense ratios represent the annual cost of operating the fund. These are ones that are typically buried in, so it's one of the ones that's more difficult to find. Management fees. Some investment funds, particularly actively managed funds, charge a management fee for the professional management of their fund's portfolio. This has become more popular, I would say, in the last 10 years as people, professionally manage portfolios and charge management fees. These are typically ones that are more disclosed. These are ones that you can typically see printed on the investment statement. Some investments have what's called front-end loads. So something like a Class A mutual fund sometimes could carry a sales charge up front. Some investments have back-end loads, like Class Bs traditionally have a back-end sales charge. If you redeem your shares within a set number of years, that fee could kick in. You could have transaction costs. These could be costs associated with like buying and selling securities within a brokerage account. This is an area where I've seen dramatic improvement over the years. I think, when I got into the business 30 years ago, it was expensive. Every time you bought or sold a stock, you'd have $30, $40, $50. There were some of these online providers that came out that started lowering it down to $9.95. And, the companies that we work with today traditionally don't charge transaction fees. People can buy and sell as often as they want, using securities or ETFs without transaction costs. But that is one that does apply in different situations. Advisory fees are somewhat similar. Sometimes they're, like I was referring to, management fees. You could have wrap fees, which are also kind of similar. There's something called custodial fees, so that's what the company could charge you for holding your account. Different investments have performance fees. There's account maintenance fees. There's riders cost and associated with it. But by doing the independent portfolio analysis, then you really start to know what your total expense is. And I would say a lot of the times when people come into our office and we haven't met with them before and they bring their investments in, they're oftentimes pretty shocked at what the expenses are. I think, as an example, variable annuities, in my opinion, tend to be some of the more costly products that are out there. Some of these private investments that are out there, like real estate investment trusts that are non-traded, a lot of these things tend to have more fees and expenses that are associated with them. And they're sometimes hard to find. Oftentimes, I think people feel that they're hidden in there, but we can kind of break those down. I met with a lady recently, and we looked at her portfolio, and I think her goal was to try to earn 6% on average is what she wanted to try to earn, which I think is, realistic. But when we looked at the cost associated with her variable annuity, she had, mortality and expense ratio of 1.3%. She had a rider cost of 1.25%. She had a sub-account management fees in the account of probably add another one. All of a sudden she's over 3% in total expenses. So each and every year, regardless of what the market does, the expense ratio was eating up half of her target return. So wow, pretty costly product. But by shopping it out and showing her what is out in the marketplace today, and there are companies that are much more cost effective, we were able to reduce our expense ratio by 65% and still get her some of the same benefits that she was looking for.
Yeah. This is a great business, Nolan. You and I have talked about it. We've both been in business a long time, 20, 30 years each. It's one of the few businesses, though, it blows my mind that people buy things and don't actually know what they cost, nor do they care. Like, imagine going to buy a car and just blindly accepting the fact that, yeah, that's what the price is, and we'll show you, we'll send you a 300-page document that it spells out all the different services. It's mind-blowing why people have so much trust in the business still after all the swindlers, of the world, the Madoffs and those folks that have really kind of tarnished the industry. But when I first started out, I was in mortgage, and we had this maybe 1 or 2 page document that the government required us to spell out every single cost, the good faith estimate. It had what the cost, the upfront fees, the commissions, the title fees, the back end points, the front end points. That industry is very well documented, and we kind of have something similar. There's a mandate once a year. Our client or 401k specifically should get the annual prospectus or the annual report, but no one reads it. It's impossible to ferret out what you're looking for. And so it was an interesting kind of anecdotal thought that popped in my head, is that we, as a country, don't really care what investments cost generally. But to your point, if you just took a couple of minutes of time, 15 minutes, I think we've been doing it so long, we could knock one of those the estimated income reports and the estimated expense reports out in 10 or 15 minutes, and it could save you literally thousands of dollars over your lifetime. So,
it's literally thousands and thousands of dollars that you may not be aware of. And so understanding those fees is essential for making an informed investment decision. And so if you're listening and you don't know down to the penny what the fees and expenses are that you have in your portfolio, I would say, Chaz, take them up on your offer. For 15 minutes and a phone call. We can kind of walk through and help you become more educated and know exactly what your expenses are and show you what comparative alternatives are in the marketplace today and put that money right back in your pocket.
15 minutes saving you potentially thousands of dollars sounds like another familiar company. Not going to mention them. Don't want to draw their fire. But it is not to say that all fees are bad. You just have to be able to assume or assess whether or not they are of value to you. And if you don't know how much you're paying, well, that is impossible to do. Let the team at America's Retirement Headquarters shine a little light on that. And if you decide it is not of value, maybe explore other alternatives. So the phone number, 419-794-3030. Go ahead and take the time. Schedule that call, 419-794-3030.